going to be very therapeutic for me. Fortunately, well, hopefully it will also be entertaining. I feel like writing helps us to kind of understand what's going on with us before we really know. And especially me, I feel like writing is what sort of tells me what's going on with myself. So I'm grateful to have it, and I'm grateful for places like this where we can share our vulnerability. Okay, so I'm going to read you a poem that's going to kind of introduce this essay, and hopefully it will all make sense. It's a love poem. Closed between the hairiest muscles, in debt, in doubt, in love with no moon, in every place including hers, with the most frustrated, the wildest, it is not enough to want her. You have taken aim like the dog. His sweet sigh is every moment put on hold. The real dark inhale of the rush is tied, anchored to your chest, the face you make when she won't stop talking, when you can't figure out what you want, what to do, how to live without anyone, how to run out and escape life in a trailer, only you and the ground. Maybe a fast car and phone to telephone your folks, the real meat of the real day running out of your fingers, not hacking at your fingernails, or hunted by the dog you'll always love. I'll wait for you to sing in the night like a boy at the window. Done with the traffic, with the plastic routine of the building, but not with the feeling of homesick, close to death drunks, drunk with life, with rotten residual work. The kids are like rocks in a sea of wounded women calling your name. I feel like I have waited for a lifetime for you suddenly, and yet I haven't waited at all. Okay, so this is called The Same Conversation. Janelle was surrounded by her bags when I picked her up from the airport. She jumped when she finally heard me shouting her name. Her dyed blonde hair, still so new to me, shook with her. I just love the blonde, she said, looking at her hair in the rearview mirror, and told me about her visit home while we drove back to St. Marcus. Janelle still lived in the same apartment she'd had throughout graduate school. She filled the small studio with bookcases from Walmart and provocative, vaguely mystical paintings that seemed to articulate the particular landscape of her mind. I helped her bring her luggage inside the apartment, which was dark and smelled like her cats. They were waiting for us when we walked in and meowed while Janelle opened the windows and lit a stick of incense. My babies, she said theatrically, holding them tight against her and making loud kissing noises with her lips. She screamed when she opened the top drawer of her bureau. Jessica took the Adderall, she said. I crossed my arms and leaned against one of the bookshelves. Could you be any more dramatic? I wanted Janelle to just sit down. I had so much to tell her. In the week that she was gone, I had been felt up in the back of a hatchback and on top of a rock next to the river on a scratchy woolen blanket. I was embarrassed and felt like a teenager. A small part of me felt hopeful, or dare I say happy, but a larger part was used to the disappointment that followed these quick-lived little flings. I'm not dramatic, I'm Cuban, Janelle said. She seemed satisfied by this. We gotta pick up more from Jessica in New Braunfels. You coming? I nodded. I'd follow Janelle anywhere, but I couldn't get a word in about Alex and felt increasingly resigned to keep quiet about whatever was going on between us. Janelle didn't need to hear it anyway. I just want her to let me go, she screamed, while we barreled down the highway, hitting her hand against the center console and kicking her foot next to the gas. Her face looked pained while she drove, taking deep puffs from her cigarette. The wind from the open window created a vortex inside the car. I put my feet on the dash and leaned against the slack of the seatbelt, thinking about Alex, the low, tired cadence of his voice at night, unapologetic and straight. You know, our friends in Miami are traumatized. 7 years we've been doing this. 7 years. They hate us together. She shook her head. The wind made it difficult to hear her, but Janelle raised her voice, unaffected. It's the same conversation. It just repeats in this cycle. While Janelle was in Miami, I spent the week at Jessica's apartment in Kyle. We stood on her balcony, looking at the runoff that we like to call our pond, our lake, something more glamorous than the runoff behind the apartment complex. It was funny to us, pretending. I was stricken, blushing, full of energy, and then completely devoid of it. I'd stare at Alex and kiss him and say to him, maybe there is a God, because I was so happy. Alex bent toward me and nodded and said, and her name is Jessica. He was crouching on Jessica's couch since his long-term relationship dissolved and left him homeless. Of course, I took the breakup as a sign that we were meant for each other. You can stay as long as you want, Jessica told him. Her apartment already served as a halfway home. She had 2 puppies, both mutts, and Janelle's cranky 9-year-old cat they rescued in Miami. When Jessica was at work, the puppies jumped at our bare legs, trying to play. All of us shared that stray quality that spoke to Jessica's therapeutic powers. The puppies weren't yet potty trained, and we were prone to addiction, unable and unwilling to settle down. Headed south on the interstate, sitting next to Janelle while she chain smoked, I thought about the way that Jessica seemed to me recently. She'd beeline to the bar at the bowling alley where I dragged her and Alex while Janelle was in Miami. It's the same conversation. It just repeats in the cycle, she said, lighting a cigarette out front. It was the same phrase Janelle used. I can't see any way out of it unless Janelle is no longer a part of my life. She was wearing baggy jeans and no bra and looked exhausted. Behind her, 2 teenage girls took turns giving each other piggyback rides in the parking lot. One girl was wearing knee-high socks and short shorts. Alex mentioned the girls to Jessica, who turned around and laughed. Do you think they need help? She smiled. That night, I watched Jessica, at her most vulnerable, half-heartedly collapse in the chair next to me. Her thick dreadlocks still messed up from when she fell asleep on the picnic bench outside the bar. I miss Janelle, she said, so that only I would hear her, so simply and so sad. I wanted them to get away from each other, but at the same time I worried that they were in love, that I was. You need a clean break, I said in the car, confused about what other advice I had to offer. That's not going to happen, Janelle shook her head. We're family. Jessica's psychology practice was small, planted squarely between a WIC and a Salvation Army. Janelle had already smoked almost a pack of Camels on the drive and lit another. It's her eyes. They always get to me. I can ignore her all I want if she's not there, but when I look into her eyes, I don't know. It's tough, man. That was what I loved most about Janelle, the ease with which she was moved. Jessica's dreadlocks were tied into a fountain behind her head when she came out of the car. You hungry? Janelle asked her. Want to get some food? No, I'm not hungry, Jessica said. What do you have to do all day, Janelle? I had 12 clients today. I'm exhausted. My first appointment was at 8 in the morning. She rubbed her forehead. If you don't want me to take it, I won't take it, Janelle said. What do you have to do all day, Janelle? Jessica repeated. Jessica, if you want to take it, Janelle said. Then she changed her mind. We'll split it. No, it's fine. I only have 2 appointments left anyway, she said, resigned. Janelle took us to Taco Bell and giggled through questions about Jessica's day. Jessica sipped the large Coke that Janelle had bought for her and hunched over the table, looking up occasionally at the highway. It was a side of Jessica I didn't normally see. She was visibly uncomfortable, tense with her movements and short replies. Janelle kept up her unceasing pleasantness, but we both shook our heads when she offered us each a bite of her caramel empanada. After we left Jessica at her office, Janelle jerked her neck in my direction, giving me the what just happened look. I told her again that they needed to break up. You don't want coffee? Let's get a coffee. Come on, you don't want a latte? She said, bending forward in her seat so that she could see the Starbucks sign in the distance. I started feeling happy about Alex again. I began to allow all of my pent-up excitement to leave my body. My whole body felt flushed, and the more I talked, the more excited I became. You need to be careful with Alex, Janelle said, signaling to turn into the Starbucks. I know, I should be careful, but I don't want to be. I just want to be happy. She reached over and got hold of my arm, shaking me softly. No, girl, she looked distracted. After a moment, she said, look, I need to tell you something. It was almost rush hour, and cars were beginning to pile up on the frontage road. We were stopped, waiting for the light to change. You know, Jessica and Alex talk about stuff. They're bros. And, well, Alex told her something. I don't know what, but he asked her not to tell you. She put up her hands like she was innocent. Jessica asked if I could keep it from you, but I can't. If I knew I'd tell you, I'd have to. I nodded slowly. In front of me was an overpass where cars were clogging the frontage road. My body was struck with an immediate alertness. The overpass suddenly looked like it was directly over us, and larger than the smallest indiscretion, than all of the smallest touches and glances and delayed declarations of how we felt.